everybody can hear me instead of just talk. For crying out loud. Good thing tech is not my job. Everybody have a good weekend?
Did you?
I did.
Testing my sound. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Great. I fixed it.
Okay, let's see. All right.
Oh, I have a question real quick.
Yes, and I was just gonna say I'm gonna just kind of give people a minute or two to hop back on since that just went bonkers for a second.
Since I'm starting kind of a couple sessions in, am I going to still pick up on things? Is it gonna?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And if you don't, like if there's something that I'm saying and you're like, oh, wait a minute, don't feel like you're interrupting to ask a question. And then at the end, I always ask, like, was there something that I covered that you weren't just super familiar with, or do you want me to go into more detail on something? So one of our sessions didn't get recorded. I'm going to re-record it hopefully this week. I wanted to try and do it over the weekend, but honestly, I was so just like burnt and needed to rest that I didn't do it. So I'm going to do it this week because the vocabulary one was real. I got a lot of feedback that one was really valuable, and that was a session that didn't get recorded. And I literally spent like 90 minutes going over vocabulary. So I'll get that re-recorded this week, and then we still have a couple of other sessions that are still buffering and trimming. And I was so funny because I said to my husband, like, oh my God, I spend more time like editing these videos than anything. And he was like, yeah, I read that when you do a class like this, you spend more time editing than anything else. And I was like, well, then I'm doing it right, I guess. So, hey, Ryan, can you please text Tyler? I don't see her on the call. And Isabel, like my staff isn't on the call. And I think Isabel needs to log in as well. Okay, but I'm going to go ahead and get started. So we closed up last time talking about like what a good flow is, how to structure your days. A processor. You should first start doing that by putting your dog outside. Hey, Deacon, can you take her in the room with you, please? Good gravy. Okay. So what I wanted to jump into today, we're gonna bring the plane down a little bit lower. If you've been with me for any number of sessions, I've talked about how we would approach this kind of like a plane approaches a landing. And so long before you actually land the plane, the pilot comes on and tells the flight attendants to get ready, right? And then shortly thereafter, you hear the pilot come on and say, you know, we're gonna start our descent into the city and we're gonna be there in X amount of time. And so we're I really need to take that out of my vocabulary. We're going to start getting a little bit more intimate with some of the details of actually processing, and we're starting to land the plane a little bit more. So now that we've walked through just a real high level overview of process and then brought it down a little bit, we've talked about what is actually registering, what kind of that, oh, see, I did it again, what that entails. We're going to dive into this a little bit deeper because one of the questions that was asked last time, oh, she's waiting for me. It doesn't say that she's waiting for me to let her in. I don't have an invitation waiting. Okay, so what we're gonna do today is really jump into the how. So I had the opportunity to sit with someone over the weekend who's attended the training, who's pretty green still, or coming out of a retail experience. And that's really one of the two main reasons I decided to do this every week is, number one, I have new people, but then I remembered what it was like transitioning from retail to broker. And even though I had at that time about 5.5 years of experience, I was so overwhelmed with how dramatically different the actual process of doing the loans as a processor was. And so what I'm trying to do is not only help those that are a little bit more new, so you kind of get the gist of it, but in broker, not only do we have to get the gist of it, we have to get the gist of it at several different banks. Okay, so I'm gonna jump into well, we only have an hour, so I might not get to submission, but I'm gonna really try and hit these two topics, which is application and registration in regards to a processor. So there are many platforms that a loan officer can have an application completed. These can be online platforms. They can be in the lender platform. So when I say platform, anytime I say platform, think of it as like if you do social media, like Facebook is a platform, Instagram is a platform, TikTok is a platform. So every bank has its own platform. So UWM has Ease, Remen has a Hub, Cardinal has Octane, Caliber has H2O. Then a lot of other banks use Encompass as their platform. So I know like Nations Direct, 11, Universal, they all use Encompass. Land Home has their own, I think it's called, what is that? I don't know what Land Home is called. Plaza is called Breeze. So that's their platform. So what we've talked about before is that all of the data from the application gets basically zipped up or encapsulated in what's called a 3.2 file. And we talked about before that the reason that it comes in a 3.2 file is because it has to be essentially encrypted because it has identifying information in there, and we are charged with keeping that information safe and secure. So in order to keep it safe and secure, it's zipped up into a 3.2 file, and then the data can be moved around. And the reason that it's safe is because you can't access the data unless you have a software platform that will open and read a 3.2 zip file. So if you're a real tech savvy person, please don't critique my language, because I know that there's a different name for it, but in order to illustrate how we process loans, it's important for me to use, and what I talk about before is to use everyday language that everybody can relate to in order to get the comprehension and understanding of processing a loan as simple as possible. There's a lot of transferable skill sets from all kinds of jobs into mortgage, and I'm trying to break down the barriers of feelings of not knowing what you're doing just because you don't know terminology for the mortgage industry. Okay, so as a processor, if you process for more than one originator, like if you're a third-party processor, or if you process within a brokerage, depending on how the brokerage is set up, can dictate how you get this information. Okay, so there are many ways that a loan application can be done. A originator can pay for internet-type software. So some examples might be Lending Pad. I use Blink just because when I started as a one-man shop, I didn't have the money to invest in technology for myself, nor did I know much about it. So Blink is a free, it's on UWM's platform. There's Preapproveme app. So these are all internet-based platforms where the loan officer most likely would send a link to the borrower to fill out this information. Some of these have the capability to store documents as well. So I'm not going to go into too much about how you can process inside of these applications. This is more for your knowledge, because I'm trying to dive a little bit more into how do you, as a processor, once you get the loan from the originator, well, what does that look like? Okay, so now I verbally and I conceptually understand I'm going to get the loan. But what exactly does that mean? Okay, so the loan officer is going to take the loan application. Okay, all that data is going to be stored in a 3.2 file. Now, every loan officer and every brokerage may have a different operating procedure for how this is handled. So in some companies, the loan officer is going to price it out and get the rate so that they can put that into the 3.2 to structure the deal. Okay, so, but some companies may require that the loan officer register. And in the previous trainings, we talked about all registering is taking this 3.2 file and uploading it to the lender or the bank. Okay. Just like registering your kids for school. Haven't gone to school yet, but you send in the form to the school with all the pertinent data for your kid to let them know your kid's coming to school there. Same thing with college. You haven't attended college yet.
You're cutting out. Your audio is cutting out.
My audio is cutting out. What was the last thing you heard?
I don't remember. I was trying to jump in.
What's the last thing that you saw me draw?
It was when you were going from the 3.2 file to the register, it was breaking up quite a bit.
Okay, so what happens is when the loan officer takes the application, now every brokerage or every originator may operate in their own way. So you're gonna have to figure out how this works in your company or with the loan officer that you're working for. But once they price the loan and get the interest rate, so like I'm gonna take this application as a broker and I'm gonna go into Loan Sifter. Not all companies have it, but I'm gonna go into Loan Sifter. I'm gonna price it out. I'm gonna say, okay, I want the 4% rate that's being offered by, let's say Home Point Financial, okay? So as the loan officer, I've taken the application, I've gotten all the credit, I've gotten all the income information. I then go to however I'm gonna price it. I decide that this is the rate and this is the lender that I wanna use. So some companies are gonna have the loan officer register, which basically is just taking the 3.2 file and uploading it to the bank. So if I want the 4% at Home Point, then either as the originator or the processor, however I get the 3.2 file, I'm going to upload it at the bank for the rate that was chosen, okay? So that could be a point of handoff. As a processor, you could receive the file right here. And it may look something like you get an email from the loan officer that says, this is the Jones file, here's the 3.2. We're gonna go with Home Point and the rate is 4%. Okay, so some of this you guys have to figure out. Some of this you guys are gonna have to figure out where do you get the file? If you work for multiple loan officers, it may be that you get the file from every loan officer at a different point. Okay, so once and like I've said before, the 3.2 is a picture, okay? So don't get hung up on when somebody says register the loan, you're just taking the 3.2 file and uploading it to the lender. It's just like taking a picture and uploading it to Facebook, or taking a picture and putting it in your Instagram story, okay? It's as simple as that, okay? So then once I register it, okay, so at this point, for the training that we're gonna do today as a processor, I basically am gonna take it from the loan officer has sent me an email, or depending on how your company does it, each loan officer does it a little bit different. But like for me, I do the OneDrive, I upload the 3.2 file, I have a borrower folder that the borrower uploads their documents into the folder. And then I email the processor and I let her know, hey, the Jones file is ready for submission or ready for you. And the 3.2 file and everything is in there, okay? So what the processor is gonna do is log into Home Point. They're gonna take the 3.2 file, they're gonna start a new loan. Most of the time when you go in to start a new loan, it's going to ask you, how do you want to start this new loan? Do you want to manually enter the data? Do you want to upload a 3.2 file? Do you want to some other way get this in here? Most of the time you just have the two options where you can manually enter. I think a few platforms have it where if automated underwriting has been ran, you can import it with your case number from the AUS system, which I've never done that. I don't know why I've never done that. I just, probably because I need to have more control over it than that. And so I just have never done it. Okay, so you're gonna do start new. Okay, what you should see after doing start new is you should then see the portal open up to your loan information that was in the 3.2 file. Every lender is going to have a different set of criteria on what is needed in order to move to the next part of the process, which is disclosures. So if I, for example, if I upload into you, if I just do this process and I upload into UWM, it gives me a loan number right away. Okay. If I do this process in Remin or 11 Mortgage and I'm missing certain criteria, it will not let me get a loan number until I push. There's literally going to be a button at the bottom that says register. Okay, the act of registering the loan, like I was saying before, and I think this is where we got cut off, is no different than like filling out the new, like sending your kids to school or registering for college. You haven't gone yet, but you're giving them all the information they need for you to be a student there or for your child to be a student there. You might also register for like, you know, or like a baby registry, right? Like you haven't had your baby yet and you haven't had your wedding yet, but you're giving it all the information for the event that's about to occur. Okay, and in order to do the next steps of processing, you have to register the loan with that lender and get a loan number. So if you're in a system, and most of the times there's like a tab bar at the top. So let's just say like this is the system. And then you have like a little dashboard right here. And a lot of times you'll see like the borrower's name and you'll see the rate and you'll see all this stuff. If the loan number is blank, you haven't registered the file yet. And you have to complete the process. And I will tell you the first 2 or 3 that you do in every lender. So like we just got signed up for the first time this month. We did a loan at Flagstar and I was like, I can't figure out how to do this. Not because I don't know how to do a loan, but I don't know their system. Okay. So after you've uploaded and you've registered the file, okay, now what? I got it registered, now what? Okay. The next thing is going to be disclosures. The loan has to be disclosed. Okay, all this is we're going to send a packet to the borrower that tells them what the borrower and the loan officer talked about, the kind of loan that they're going to do. Okay. I'm really simplifying this because this sucker is anywhere between 60 and 75 pages, depending on what kind of loan you do. Okay, it's got all the mandatory disclosures for housing, equal credit, okay? But it has to be disclosed, okay? So we've got the application is done, we've figured out the rate, and in order for the loan officer to figure out the rate, they got to know what kind of loan they're doing, what are the terms. We're going to register and get a loan number. And then the loan has to be disclosed. Now, this is different at every lender. So some lenders you can disclose in their system, meaning that once I upload my picture, once I upload my file and I upload my picture, okay, they're going to want me to go through a process of either entering or confirming the fees associated with the file. I can't stress this enough. If you are newer to the industry, you have to do this with your account executive, with your loan officer, or with your broker owner the first however many times, because this is very like, I don't want to stress you guys out, like I really don't, but this is really important. And you can make or break deals if it's not disclosed properly. And every state has their own rules about what needs to be disclosed and who's going to pay for it, and all the people that are involved in it, in the transaction. Like, for example, New Jersey is an attorney state, Colorado is not, California is an escrow state, New Mexico is as well, but it's only a 1-day escrow, where I think California is a 3-day escrow, and some people have title companies and escrow companies, and some people have attorneys, and like, right? So I can't give you a blanket statement about how to do this in regards to like, make sure you enter this fee and make sure you enter that fee. I would say the first couple that you do, you need to get on the phone with the account executive at a bank, at the bank that you are doing the loan, and go through this with them. They oftentimes, most lenders now have what's called smart fees. Where technology has gotten so advanced that smart fees will, I always call it ping, but it will go to a title company website. Now, I'm not an IT person, so I'm not going to talk about how it does this, but it'll go to a title company website and it'll extract the fees, like a fee sheet from the title company based on the transaction that we're doing. I would say if you have the option to do a smart fees, you need to do this until you get comfortable being able to do this on your own within the lender. If you do not, if you are doing this at a bank where you don't have the option to disclose within their portal, like Remen doesn't do a full disclosure process in their portal. We generate the disclosure package in Calyx. I actually do that on my files. We have other loan officers who do not, but I create, as the loan officer, I will create the entire package. I will put it in the folder before I send it to the processor, and I'll let them know, hey, the Jones file is registered at Remen. Please send the disclosures out. The package is in the borrower folder. She goes and grabs the disclosure package, puts it in DocuSign, and sends it out to the borrower with all the, she puts all the little fields in there where they have to sign. She sends that out, and then she knows when it comes back in, her job is to upload it for submission. Okay, so the next step is disclosures. Now, if you are not doing this part, or you need help with this part, that's fine, but don't stop working on the loan, okay? So the next thing, now that you've got a loan number, you're gonna start putting your orders together, okay? So you're gonna order title work. Oh. And you're gonna get your order together for insurance. Every loan is going to need to have title work and insurance. Okay, so I got asked the question in my class last week. Letting my screen catch up. Okay. Can we limit access to the 2.4 Wi-Fi, please? If they're not doing schoolwork, can they opt out the 2.4 access? Okay. gonna try and kick some people off our one set of Wi-Fi. See if that'll help. Okay. So even if you get stuck here and you're waiting for someone to help you, you're gonna wanna start your orders for title work and insurance. And so in the training that I had last week, somebody said, I get that. Like, I totally understand that. How do you do that? Great question. Fantastic question. Because when I worked at Wells Fargo, I pushed a button and somebody did something in a different department. And then I got an email when it came back in. So when I went to broker and someone was like, you got to order the title work, I was like, yeah, where's the button? It's like the joke, like, where's the any key on the keyboard, right? And I was like, where's the order title work button? So if you have access to Calyx, there is in the right-hand side, is everybody okay if I erase this real quick? Okay. So we're gonna pretend like this is Calyx. Okay, you got your little 1980 emoji icons up here. And then you have like a menu on the side here, okay? And when you click on these menus, it changes the page in here. So I click on this item, this page changes. Okay, you're gonna have in Calyx, you're gonna have 2 pages, you're gonna have lots of pages in here that say request for, X. Okay, so there's request for title work, request for insurance, request for payoff, request for verification of mortgage. Okay, so when you click on this button, it's going to change this page. You need to have the loan number and the mortgagee. So the mortgagee, I was explaining this the other day. So when the easiest thing to relate it to is car insurance, because most people drive a car, have a car, know about cars, okay? When you have a loan on a car, the bank that you have your loan with has to be listed on the insurance for your car. So that way, if you get in a car accident and your car is completely totaled, the insurance company is notified that there's a loan on there, and the car driver doesn't just get the money for the car and then not pay the loan off. So kind of like take the money and keep it, because the loan has to be paid off. And so until the loan is paid off, the bank is going to be listed as basically an interested party, or what's called an additional insured. So what happens is once the car is paid off, then the insurance company is removed, and then you can just carry liability insurance, which just covers somebody else's car if you get into an accident and it's your fault. Now, when you have a mortgage, anytime, so this is not mortgage insurance, this is just homeowner's insurance. This is if they have a fire or they have a flood or a hailstorm comes, right? This is the homeowner's insurance, it's the borrower's insurance that's going to protect the home. So you need the loan number and you need the bank's mortgagee. And the mortgagee is just the bank's information so they can be listed as an additional insured on the insurance policy. That way, if the house burns to the ground and the insurance policy sends a check to the borrower doesn't just skip out with $300,000. The bank is listed as an additional insured. And normally when there's a loss over like a certain amount of money, it'll list the homeowner and the bank on the check. So it's our job to tell the insurance company who the bank is and what the loan number is. That way, in the event that there's any sort of loss on the insurance, the bank is listed on there. And the bank wants to be listed on there because that's the collateral that they're going to use. Like, you don't pay the mortgage, they take the home back. Okay, so when you select request for insurance, the screen will change, and then you're going to enter the bank information and the loan number. Then you PDF print it, save it in your processing file, And then once you have the insurance information from the borrower, you just contact their insurance agent and you let them know, hi, I'm working with a mutual client. They're doing a refinance and I need to send in a request for a mortgagee. Do you take those by email or fax? Just let me know. Most of them are small companies. Every now and then you get a real big, like Progressive sometimes is big. They don't always have, it's not always a local insurance agent. Sometimes you have to go through their website. Okay, same thing with title work. So depending on what kind of loan you're processing, whether it's a purchase or a refinance, the type of loan that you're doing, purchase or refinance, is going to tell you how you're going to find out where the title work is being done. Okay, so if it's a purchase, the contract is going to tell you who is doing the title work, what company. Okay, now if you have, I will tell you this, it's just a kind of a one-off thing, not because I think that you should remember it, but what will happen is when it happens to you, you will have remembered hearing it. So we have in Colorado, there's RE/MAX is really the one that does it the most. They have what's called an MSA, so they also own a title company. And a lot of the RE/MAX agents use the title company, which is called CoPro. I think it's still called CoPro. They use the title company that's owned by RE/MAX. So when you get a contract that is from the seller is using a RE/MAX agent, when you look at the contract, it'll say that the earnest money is being held by RE/MAX. And it doesn't tell you the title company. And I've only seen this like one or two other times outside of RE/MAX, but you will have to call the buyer's realtor and ask them to send you the title work once it becomes available, because the contract doesn't list who the title work is. States vary on how much information they list on the contract for title work. So New Mexico tells you the title company, the title agent, their phone number, their contact information, their address. Colorado doesn't. They just say it's going to be done. The title company is land title. So what we do as a practice is we call the we Google land title in the city that the contract is in. We call that office. We say, hey, I'm the lender for a buyer, for a purchase, and I'm looking to find out who my escrow agent is, or who my closer is, or who's handling this file. And you give them the property address, and then they'll tell you who's handling it. We just normally ask for an email address, and then we take our request for title work that we've entered the loan number and the mortgagee information on, and then PDF printed, and we email it to them. Okay, so it was a really good question that happened in our originating class for someone who was self-processing. She's like, I get that, but how do you do that? Okay, now other places may have other systems. If they use Encompass or Arive, this is going to be different. But the general idea is you have to figure out, how does the order process work? Okay, so I need to get title, but how do I do that? And where do I find this information? If it's a refinance, then the loan officer is typically going to use somebody in the community that they have a relationship with that does title work. So though you would get that information from the loan officer if it's a refinance. At our company, every loan officer has the free option to use whomever they would like. I personally use an escrow agent at First Integrity Title. So my processor knows that any file that comes in from me, we're going to use Tina Bonham at First Integrity Title. So she doesn't have to ask me every time. She just knows that that's what we're going to do. Okay, any questions about this so far? Okay. This would be, so last time we talked about having different signatures for each request in your emails, like having different signatures, lining up the things that you need to have. Now, when it comes in, So let's talk about insurance for a minute. When the insurance comes in, meaning you've sent the request out, the insurance agent has sent you an email back with the insurance information. Okay, so as a processor, you need to look for a couple things. You need to check the mortgagee. Whoops. Mortgagee. 9 times out of 10, this is at the bottom of the insurance page they send you. But you need to check the mortgagee and the loan number. You need to check the, oh, that ring light is gonna be the death of me sometimes, I tell ya. Not better? That's a little better. You need to check the, sorry, the ring light's just gonna be there. You need to check the coverage amount. Okay, what I'm saying to you here is if we have a loan, let's say the loan that you're processing is $250,000. And the insurance paperwork comes back in and it says dwelling 190,000. Okay, so back in the day, banks used to say, oh, no, you have to have insurance coverage that covers the loan amount. And it basically created, in simplest terms, an environment where insurance was artificially, like people were overinsured. It didn't cost $250,000 to build the house. That's the market value of it, but that wasn't the raw cost of reconstructing the house in the event of a total loss. So people were being required to be overinsured and then making their insurance premiums higher. Okay, so once people threw a big enough fit about it and it got fixed, you're going to be looking for a couple of things. If you're going to be looking for extended coverage, now this can be hard to find and it's not always plain as day. So what I started doing and then teach my processors to do is in that initial request out to the insurance agent, when I'm telling them what we want back, we've started including 2 additional things, which is to please advise if there's any additional coverage. And then the second one I'll tell you in a second. So what does this mean? What does extended coverage mean? So a lot of times policies, as some of them, it's just the standard business model they do. Other insurance agencies charge an additional premium to have additional coverage. Additional coverage is the amount of coverage on top of, in addition to, the dwelling coverage listed on the policy. So the more common things to see are going to be 20 or 25. And that's exactly how you would see it, extended coverage 20 or 25. So what this is 190 times 1.25 which is a total coverage amount of $237,500. But we're still short because our loan amount is $250,000. So what you want in that event is the cost replacement estimator, or CRE. So cost replacement estimator, if you've ever, so we're just going to go back to car insurance because not everybody's owned a home before. But you know, when you get car insurance, the insurance agent asks you like, okay, well, do you have a sunroof? Do you have a moonroof? Is it leather interior? Right? They got to know the quality of construction or material of the vehicle in order to know how to properly insure your vehicle. So like if I just called my insurance agent and told him I had a Yukon, a GMC Yukon, they're going to insure that differently than when I tell them, oh, I'm sorry, it's actually a Denali and an extended version. Because a Denali has, you know, like the types of parts that are used in a Denali, because it's a Denali, are very specific and very expensive. So there's a really good chance that if I don't tell him it's a Denali, that I'm not going to have enough insurance coverage when or if I have a claim. So if an insurance agent doesn't know that you have a clay roof or a tiled roof, or they think that the whole inside is carpet, but really it's hardwood floor, that could be a big difference in having the right coverage or not, right? So the cost replacement estimator is the insurance agent asking the client what all of the materials are, and then that's how they determine how much to insure the property for. So now that you know all of that, I'm going to simplify your life. When you request your insurance, you're going to ask for the deck page. Whoops. Y'all, like my hand and my brain are not communicating very well today. Okay, you're going to ask for the deck page. You're going to ask for the policy invoice. That's going to tell us how much we need to collect at closing. And just ask for the darn CRE from the get-go. And ask them to comment if the policy includes CLUDES any extended coverage. Okay. Just put it in the email from the get-go. So the declarations page is going to be the information that tells you how much coverage do they have, what all is covered, okay? The invoice is going to tell us, and sometimes the premium will be included on the deck page. Don't let that insurance agent pass you around. We have to have an invoice. The bank needs to know, especially on a refinance, when was the last time this was paid and is there money due now? Because if there's money due now, then we have to pay it now with the closing, okay? A lot of times agents get all snooty and they're like, and then send you the invoice. It says it right on the deck page. And you can say, thank you, I noticed that. I do also, however, need the invoice. You think that's something you can get to me today? And then you hang up the phone, you cuss them out a little bit, because you won't get this through this job without doing that. Okay, and then just ask them for the cost replacement estimator, and then just say, hey, and if there's any extended coverage, could you just bullet point or let me know where to find it or let me know what the coverage is? Okay, just ask for it on the get-go. But now you kind of understand, you know, why they're going to ask you for that. So if you don't get all of this, that's fine. It's fine. Just know when you submit it to the underwriter, it's going to come back and you're going to get hit with one of these. So in order to in order to help be more efficient at turning files quicker and processing them more complete and having approvals come out with the least amount of conditions, knowing what to ask for from the very beginning and why you need it, okay? But the thing that will slow up your file or prevent you from getting a closing disclosure out is gonna be not checking to make sure that the mortgagee is on there and correct and the loan number. Which if you're first starting out, like, don't worry about it. Like, don't stress too much about it, okay? It's checks and balances. We're gonna send stuff in. The underwriter's gonna check. If it doesn't balance, they're gonna kick it back out and say, oh, your loan number is not on here somewhere. And you guys, I've had times where I didn't even look. And I go back to the insurance agent and I'm like, dear Cindy, could you please add the loan number to this? And they're like, Jackie, it's in the bottom left-hand corner right underneath. And I'm like, yep, you're right. Thanks so much. I can't believe the underwriter and I missed it. I really appreciate you. Have a great day. Okay, so I meet and the underwriter because it's not in the place that we're used to seeing it, and so sometimes it's different. But that's okay. Like, that's how I've learned these things, is 13 years of being like, my bad, egg on my face. Thanks for pointing it out. It was clearly, obviously, right in front of my nose, but sure do appreciate you highlighting that in red for me, right? So don't get too stressed out about some of these things, but I want to show you how to be more efficient. Okay. I'm erasing that. If you don't have it, come back and watch it later and screenshot. Okay. And I'm going to do the same thing for title work. I know I gave you all the list last time. Oh, okay. So for title, okay. Who's really versed on what title work even is? Anybody in here? You can rate. Ooh, hold on. I almost ended the entire freaking meeting. Don't want to do that. Okay, so who in here is really versed and like really knows their stuff about title work? Just unmute yourself and say, I mean, I'm pretty knowledgeable about it. Okay, super. Okay. When you're doing a purchase, okay, so we're handling this part of the transaction, the buyer, okay? And you have a seller, right? Now, we have no idea the credit worthiness or the kind of person this person is at all, okay? So title's job, I feel really inadequate with not having my marker jar really close to me. Okay, so title is like, oh, come on. Okay, so title, right? Title's like this. Okay, title's like the mom going like this between her two kids, making sure they don't kill each other, okay? But the title company's job is two functions. Number one, it's to make sure that this person abides by the contract and this person abides by the contract. Because back in the day, some sellers screwed a buyer or a buyer screwed a seller and didn't perform. And it was decided that it was so important that we needed to make sure we had an entity involved in these transactions to make sure that everybody performed. So what a title company does and what title commitment is, a title commitment is saying, outlining any of the outstanding obligations the seller has that are using the property as collateral. If they have a loan, they have a mechanics lien. So mechanics lien's like, it was winter time and the furnace guy came out and fixed the furnace, but they never paid the furnace guy. The furnace guy can put a lien against the property. And so whenever the property transfers over, the title company has to make sure that all of the obligations that are filed against the property are paid and cleared so that the buyer receives the property clear of anything that has to do with the seller. Because sometimes what would happen back in the day is like, and I mean like way back in the day, like back in the day before any of us were even thought of being human beings, is that a seller might have had work done on their house, like maybe they had a roof repaired and, you know, strung the contractor along like, yeah, I'm going to pay you. Yeah, I'm going to pay you. Oh, I got this check coming in, right? Knows they're in hot water, sells the house, takes the money and books it. The contractor comes back and says, hey, y'all, that roof, I did that. Nobody's paid me. And the buyer's like, but I didn't. And I bought the house with the impression that the roof was new. I didn't know it wasn't paid for, right? So what happens is any what's called an encumbrance on the property, the title company's job is to make sure that all of those encumbrances are satisfied in the title work and that the title to the property, the deed, is transferred to the buyer clean. Okay? So the title company also makes sure that the buyer brings their money. So the buyer brings their money, the seller brings the keys. At closing, everybody signs the papers, and then the title company gives the seller the money and pays off any encumbrances and gives the buyer the keys. If either one of these sides do not perform, then the deal doesn't happen. Okay, so our job as a processor is to order the title work. Well, normally the seller in a purchase, normally the listing agent or the seller will place the initial order for the title work. We then are asking for it to be updated with the mortgage information, because the title company is going to insure the bank, right? The bank for the money that we're getting here, they're going to insure the bank that they're going to do their job and make sure that all of this stuff, all the encumbrances are taken care of. So it's our job to tell the title company what bank we're using, who is going to be protected, that if the title company misses something or something doesn't get caught or it doesn't get recorded properly, the bank's going to be covered, because that's a lot of money that the bank is lending. Okay, so does anybody have any questions about that on just kind of like a real basic level? Okay. It's like the #1 reason why loan officers fail the NMLS exam, because nobody talks about this. And then you go there and there's like 25 questions on it and you're like, I don't know. What's title work? What's an encumbrance? I don't even know that word. Where's the dictionary? I don't know. Okay. So when you're asking for title work, now that you have a real high level understanding of what it does, right? So you're going to send a request to title, okay? You're going to ask for the commitment, right? This is the contract from the title company. What we're going to do to ensure this transaction is done properly and nobody has a negative impact in it. Okay, you're going to ask for the tax cert, which is short for certificate. I hate my freaking ring light. We're gonna have to do something about this ring light. We're gonna get something else. It literally is always right in the middle of what I'm writing. Next week, we're gonna have a solution for this. Okay, the tax, what, go ahead.
Can you tell me what it says? You said tax what?
Cert.
I'm sorry?
Can you see it now? Yeah.
Oh, okay. Thanks.
Is that any better? Well, no, because then that light does the same thing and so does this one. Yeah, it's a little bit better. We'll leave that, we'll leave the ring light off for a little bit. Okay, we call it for short, it's a tax cert, but it's a tax certificate. And title gets this from the county, verifying what the property taxes are on the property. Why is that important? Because if somebody, right, so if the seller doesn't pay the property tax, oh, it's the same fucking marker. Hold on. See, now I throw around cuss words like it's bubblegum. Okay, so if the seller hasn't paid these, the title company is going to take this money out of their proceeds or what's left over and make sure that the taxes are paid before it goes to the buyer, because the county can lien or the state can lien the property for past due taxes. So the tax cert serves both for the buyer and the seller. We need to know what's the status of taxes, what's currently paid, and what is owed by the seller for the time that they've owned it. And, okay, what's the amount of the property taxes so we know what to escrow monthly and what to collect at closing to establish the new escrow account. Don't worry if you didn't understand half of what I just said. You will have heard it before, and it'll make sense when you hear it again. Okay, so we're going to ask title for the tax certificate, but we just call it a tax cert. Okay, you're going to ask them for the CPL or ICL. So when I first started, it was called a CPL, and then I got a condition sheet asking for an ICL, and I was like, what? What's it? What is this? I don't even know what this is. It's the same thing. Okay. If you've been here long enough, EOI, HOI, same thing. So this is a closing protection letter, and this is an insured closing letter. It's the same thing. This is a one-page form. You have to get the mortgagee on the commitment and the CPL. This also needs the loan number. Okay. This is a one-page document in most, well, in my experience. So I don't work in all the states. It might be a little bit bigger in other states. This specifically insures the bank for this specific transaction that we are working on, that if anything that is done by the title company makes the loan unsellable in the secondary market, this is an insurance policy for the bank on this specific loan. Okay. You're going to ask for the prelim CD. Oh my. So prelim is just an abbreviation for the preliminary. So the initial CD. This is going to tell you what the title fees are going to be. And you're going to need that for closing. You're going to ask for the wire instructions. Because remember, our buyer and us as the bank, we got to send the money to title, because title is going to hold the money at closing until everybody signs everything, and then they can give the money out to the seller. Okay. So you need the wire instructions. Some banks want a copy of their E&O or errors and omissions insurance. I don't have this. We don't ask for this on every request, because I think once the lender gets it once, typically they like store it and they catalog it and whatever. But in case you ever see that come up, or if you want to add it to your list of documents that you ask for from the title company right away. Okay. You can also ask on a refinance. You can also ask the title company for a payoff. Now, in my experience, I have my processor order the payoff at the same time that they order the commitment, because I don't want to have to wait for the title company to send it to me. And sometimes, depending on how the title company does their process, they want additional paperwork that sometimes confuses the borrower. And 9 times out of 10, the payoff is done in an automated system anyway. So we'll talk about that next time, because I'm going to be running late. So these are the bullet points of things that I ask for the title company: the commitment, the tax cert, the CPL, the prelim CD, and the wire instruction. And then you can add, if you want, the E&O and a payoff on a refinance. You would not ask for a payoff on a purchase, because the payoff is for what the seller owns, and that's going to be part of their job on the commitment to figure out what needs to pay off that belongs to the seller. Okay. Any questions about this? Does anybody want me to go over any of these things in any more detail? Now, you understand why you need title work in a purchase. Why do you need title work on a refinance? Well, first of all, we need to make sure that the current loan is paid in full. Oh, see, that light still gets it. The current loan is paid in full. Because imagine, and this is what happens in title companies when you can look up stories about money that's embezzled from title companies, is that what happens is when the new bank sends the money to title, they don't send it to pay off the old bank. And somewhere in here it's embezzled. And now the property owner has 2 mortgages on the same property. Yeah. Yeah, right? So you got to make sure that the old bank is paid off in full so that the borrower only has 1 mortgage. That would be a situation where a CPL and a lender's title policy, I'm not sure which one, but one of those things would come in, one of those policies would come into play for that exact reason. For some reason, the old loan didn't get paid off. Okay, but also what happens is, let's say the seller, or let's say the homeowner had work done that they didn't pay for. A roof or a sewer line. But not only that, let's say sometimes you'll see child support pop up. Medical. So if they have a large enough medical bill and they were taken to court and a judge deemed that the bill was valid and due, it becomes what's called a judgment. And when the title company does a public record search with the social security number, they'll pull up any judgments. And judgments will need to be cleared or paid off with the new loan, because we need to make sure that anything that's an encumbrance or makes the title work dirty is cleared, even if it's a refinance with our own homeowner. Tax liens. You might have previous property tax liens. You might have an HOA lien. Let's say the homeowner doesn't agree with the HOA, thinks that they're worthless and don't do anything, so they've decided not to pay the HOA. That's a real bummer, because they will lien the property. And when you go to refinance or when you go to refinance or something, then this lien will pop up. I'm sorry, I just saw this. Yeah. Yeah, so Alicia is sharing just kind of what they request in when they send the title work out. Ours isn't that in depth. That may be, some of this may be state specific, like we don't have a vesting agreement in Colorado. It tells us if it's a purchase, it tells you on the contract how vesting will be held. It's determined by the contract. But here's a really good example. Okay. Thank you for sharing that. So that's why you need title work on any transaction that includes the transfer of ownership. You will have title work even if somebody's paying cash, because it's the transfer of real property. And the transfer that's occurring on a refinance is the transfer of the additionally insured of the bank. So we're transferring the ownership. We're paying off one ownership party, which is the mortgage that's doing the loan. And we're now incurring a new loan with a different one. And so with a different bank. So they still need to ensure that the title work is clear before the new bank insures that property or that loan or decides to take that house as collateral. So like I said before, some of my terminology isn't always technically correct. I'm trying to give you the information in the most common everyday terms so that you understand the process and why these things are important or why you need them. Or if you come, you may remember this and be like, oh shoot, this is the first one I've seen about that. I heard about that. I vaguely remember, what this is or what to do, but I will tell you the first time that I ever saw or approval come back and say, you need to clear the Capital One account. And I'm like, what Capital One account? There's no Capital One account on the credit report. Well, they were talking about it being a judgment. And, like the approvals a lot of times will tell you that it's a judgment or where to find it. We have to remember, like, I've been doing this for over a decade. And so sometimes it didn't. It would just say, like, get the payoff for the Capital One account. I remember, like, what Capital One account? Okay, so the system has grown, but you would at least understand what a judgment is, why it's there. Okay, sometimes what happens is you have what's called common name. So we just had this on a closing in New Mexico with our client, and he has a very common name. And so we had to kind of prove that these weren't his accounts. One was a state tax and one was a judgment at the county courts. One of the ways that you can do that is providing a statement from the borrower that they've called the county, or letting the title agency know, I've confirmed with the borrower, these are not their accounts, and they can additionally run the social security number, or they have a verification form that the title company needs to send to the borrower so they can run their additional checks to validate whether or not that is truly the borrower's account or if it's something that popped up on a common name. Okay, you just got to work with your title companies. It won't happen very often. It really won't. Okay. So next time we'll talk about, so you've put these orders out and you've come in and what it looks like to actually submit a loan. Well, I know we gave a list about what documents, but we're actually going to go through the process, right? Like we talked about today, someone says, if I say, then you order title and insurance, and you're like, that's great, I understand that, but how do I do that? So I know that you guys understand at this point that submitting a loan is like uploading a picture, right? But how do I actually do all of that? So what we'll do next time is I've already got a test dummy case in a couple of our lenders, and I'll actually show you how that would be done, and some ways to do it a little bit more efficiently to get the file moving as quickly as possible. Does anybody have questions about what we went over today? For those of you that are hopping on a little bit late, we typically run just about an hour for the processing. I trim them up just a little bit and then get them posted to YouTube. So can
I
you?
just have a quick question.
Yes.
Do you disclose like your own broker disclosures, or just go with the lender's one?
So in the broker world, everybody is different. So I will tell you that if we can disclose in the lender's portal, we do, for simplicity. For the banks that we don't have the capability to do it, we disclose. There's probably one or two banks that are just so cumbersome to disclose in their system, we will still broker disclose because it's easier.
Okay.
That makes sense?
Yes.
Okay. You're welcome. Anybody else? Okay, so I am going to do, I have a couple of documents that I'll have available for next time that talk, like their submission sheets. There's one that I like the best because it's like it's one of the lenders put it out and it's a guaranteed 21-day close. The reason that I like it the best is because we talked about before, the intention is to address not only the loan approval process, but address the key items that allow you to issue a closing disclosure, which have to be issued 72 hours before you can close. So once you reverse engineer that, if we're going to close on this date, then I got to get the CD out this date, which means I got to need to know what items I need to have in underwriting and approved so I can get an early disclosure out. An early closing disclosure is a closing disclosure that's issued before clear to close, which we've evolved, and I think pretty much all lenders will do this now. When TRID first came out, not all lenders would let you early disclose a CD. They would make you wait until you're clear to close. So talking about those points, but also, again, how do I actually do this? Okay, and I know that some of you have a lot of practice in here, like you're not like super new, you've done this before, but I'm also going to show you again some things that can create a better sense of efficiency so that you can get that in and get on to the next file. Okay, the biggest complaint, so I will tell you that part of the reason why I decided to open this up to everybody from my team is the thing that I see outside of compliance guidance, the thing that I see the most that loan originators and brokers need are processors. It is such an underserved area of opportunity in our industry. The more efficient that you can get at it, the better you will be, the more pay you can get, but also the more loan officers that you can work for. The things that I am teaching you are going to be the things that loan officers will pick you apart for. Like, I sent you this at 2 o'clock yesterday and you didn't turn it in until 9 o'clock today. Thanks, Steve. I appreciate you pointing that out to me. In case you weren't aware, after 12 counts for the next day anyway. So you didn't actually lose any time by me uploading it this morning versus 2 o'clock yesterday. Both of those time slots count for today. So what I actually did was working on conditions on approved loans yesterday and got those in, and then worked on new conditions this morning. It all counts as the same time frame, right? So like even my processor, I kind of felt like a bad parent because even my processor didn't know that. She's like, oh my God, that makes so much more sense now. It's also going to keep you from, like, when you get emails in that a loan's approved, you're going to want to work on it right then, but you're going to be in the middle of another file. And so there's going to come points where you're going to feel conflicted on what do I work on first. And knowing that noon cutoff or finding out from your lenders what is the same day cutoff will help you prioritize. You're not going to feel bad about not working on that loan that came in at 3 o'clock today until tomorrow, because you know that it's going to be time stamped and received as the same. So you can continue working on your pipeline in ways that work in order to preserve your turn time from the loan officer to the lender. And you just got to be honest with them. If you get something at 9 o'clock in the morning and you can't get it in that day, you need to just let them know, hey, I'm running about 1 day for submission. So this will actually be logged in for tomorrow's turn time. They need to know that. They may be able to get other documents from the borrower. Like, let's say they told the borrower, like, don't worry about it, just get it to me when you can, and we're going to get the file submitted. If they know they have an extra day before you're going to submit it, let them work. Let the loan officer work. You could say, hey, I'm running about a day to submissions. Can you do me a favor though? Could you make sure I have the borrower's insurance contact so I can get that order out right away and try and get it in the file with my submission? Is that something you can get for me today though? Because I will tell you, the insurance piece is the one that's always given like almost last. So those are some of the things that I want to make sure that you guys take away from these sessions as far as like, how do I become more efficient? But I will tell you, the lack of communication is the thing that will, and then not staying on top of your files. Like, you put a title order in and 2 days have gone by and you don't have it, and you don't know why you don't have it, and you haven't called on them to find out why you don't have it yet. This title work really shouldn't be more than 48 hours. Okay. All right, guys. Well, thanks for hanging with me today. If you have questions, just unmute yourself real quick. If you don't, otherwise, we'll see you on Thursday. Sound good? All right. Bye, guys.